Keep up with Scottish football with your host, John Turner.
So today's guest on the Low Ball Show is a man who's played with teams such as Kilmarnock, Montrose, Queen of the South, Rangers, Dundee United, Hibs, St Johnstone, Partick Thistle, Falkirk, Queen's Park. That is Cammy Bell. Cammy, thanks for joining us today.
No problem.
The kind of first thing that I wanted to ask is, I know you went on loan a couple of times early in your career when you were at Kilmarnock, but you had a kind of long career at Kilmarnock. I mean, what was that like being so young?
Yeah, obviously I kind of started my journey at Kilmarnock through the youth system, to be honest. I started before I went full-time. I was with the youth teams at Kilmarnock, and we had a really good team actually. We had some good players, Stephen Naismith, Jamie Hamill, some guys that went on and had really good careers as well. So there was always a good group that I was in. A number of other players that played sort of lower sort of league as well. So we had a good group at that age group, and then it just kind of continued. The journey kind of started from there and went full time, which was a complete change to me and change to my sort of life. I'm from Annan originally, so at 15-year-old had to move to Kilmarnock, so that was a big step for me and makes you grow up pretty quickly. But yeah, it was a great journey. The youth teams, the under-18s, we won the first time Kilmarnock had ever won the Scottish Youth Cup final as well. We beat Rangers in the final, and that was a really special moment as well. You get a glimpse of what your career could be when you win that. And again, there was some really good players on the pitch at that point. For us, there was Stephen Naismith, Jamie Hamill, Neil McGregor, who went and played for Ayr, Stephen Masterton played with Morton. So some guys who played really good level of football. And Rangers they had Ross McCormack up front. They had Gary McKenzie at the back. Lee Robinson was in goal. Stephen Smith. So there was a number of players on that pitch that night that had went on and had really good careers. After it, Charlie Adams was one as well. He played in that game. So Charlie obviously had a fantastic career. So it was a little glimpse of what you could get if you really worked hard and continued your journey. And thankfully, I managed to do that with Kilmarnock and managed to break into the first team, albeit after a couple of loans, which you mentioned, which for me were really, really important in my career, and I think are important in any youngster's career. Going out and playing senior football is the most important thing, because that was the really moment that I sort of grasped that I wanted to be a footballer. I wanted to win games of football. I had that sort of changed my mentality a little bit from playing youth development football into men's football, and whereas it meant at Montrose, listen, they were in League Two at that point, but the fans being there, guys that were wanting a 50 quid win bonus were desperate for it, and it just makes a huge difference, and it really drives you on as a person. And there were big moments in my career in my two loan spells with Kilmarnock.
Now, with you talking about the loan spells, was that a bit of a difference? Now, when you look at, say, Kilmarnock and you look at the stadium and the set-up there, but when you're going down to, say, the likes of Montrose, where the fans are a lot closer to the pitch, so maybe shouts and things, you're able to hear a bit better than, playing at the likes of Rugby Park or playing across stadiums in the SPL. Was that something that you kind of heard a lot of, whether it be positive or negative, not just for you, but in general?
Yeah, no, I think it's a real learning journey that, as you say, the fans are very close to you, right on top of you, especially being a goalkeeper. You can hear them the whole game. Whereas some bigger stadiums that you go on, and I managed to experience during my career, again, you don't feel as close to the fans as a smaller ground. So yeah, it was a good experience. It's a learning experience, and one that definitely helped me further on in my career. But yeah, as I say, I can't stress how important it was, them two loan spells and with Montrose and Queen of the South, of how important it sort of made my journey and really moulded me as a person. Because, as I say, I remember going back to Kilmarnock after my Queen of the South loan and saying to Jim Jeffries, I want to play football. If you can't give me it, then I'm going to have to leave the club, because I'd wanted it that much. I'd experienced championship football. I'd experienced a European tie with Queen of the South at that point as well, and it was just an amazing experience and something I wanted more of. So I was desperate just to go and play football, and wasn't one of these guys that kind of was quite happy to go and sit in the background and be a number two or just play a bit part of the game. I said to Jim, like, if I don't get the opportunity, then I'm going to have to move on. I didn't want to, but I was just kind of part of my journey. So yeah, they were really, really important spells in my career.
That must have took quite a lot as well, though, to go to a guy like Jim Jeffries and kind of be saying, this is what I want to do. But did you feel like the loan spells and the experience, not just for your career in the sense of experience, but kind of mentally had helped you develop?
Yeah, definitely. I think the loan spells are really big, because I think Jim had the respect. Again, he's a scary man to a lot of people, but I had a good relationship with Jim. He always kind of seen me as being a top goalkeeper in the future. And I think he understood. I think he really respected me going up and saying, look, I want to play football. Because, as I say, there's some people out there that genuinely quite happy to sit in the background and be a number two. But at that age, at sort of that 20-year-old, I knew I wanted to play football. I knew it was the only way that I could develop as a goalkeeper as well. Playing games made me a better goalkeeper, made me a better person, understand the game more, and that's what I wanted to do. And he understood that, and thankfully, I eventually got my opportunity to Kilmarnock, because that was always my first choice. I wanted to play with Kilmarnock and be a Kilmarnock first-team goalkeeper, and thankfully I managed to do that.
And just when you talking about the loan spells, and just kind of generally, because a lot of guests that I've had on, and we've spoke around the B team setup and how that works, and a lot of the B teams, predominantly a lot of youngsters, a lot of kids, getting like that and kind of gaining experience. But do you feel that, or do you think that the experience alone is perhaps far better than maybe a B team experience?
I think it is difficult. It's trying to find that right balance. I think the B team experience has its place, and I think it will develop some of these youngsters, and it's giving them competitive football, because I sometimes think that, listen, the development of football is great to a certain point, but then there needs to become a realism of that football means something. Football means it's all about winning. It's all about again, having that mentality. If you get beat, you need to get up the next week and win the next game. And creating that mindset in a lot of youngsters is difficult when you've just been playing development games that don't actually mean anything at the end of it.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the real difference is. And I think the B team stuff is kind of grasping it a little bit, but I also still think definitely your loans are the way forward, because. And I'm surprised there's not been a lot more strategic partnerships within the bigger clubs in Scotland with some of the smaller clubs. And again, sometimes I don't think the system allows that at the moment, which is a shame, because all we're doing is hampering our own young players. I think that the system needs to be looked at, that there can be more loan players going to one team. I'm not saying absolutely an influx of loan players, but I do think there's definitely scope out there for us to create partnerships between the bigger clubs in Scotland that have got big youth systems and a lot of players at their disposal, to work with their sort of League One, League Two clubs and be really close together. Again, the partnership can go as far as you want it to go. It can have some coaches going into that club, some sports scientists going into that club, and this all helps Scottish football, because ultimately a lot of the teams at League Two level can't afford a sports scientist, can't afford a qualified sports scientist. But if you've got a strategic partnership with a big club, then they can maybe send their youth development sports scientists to go and develop all these players. And I just think we kind of missed the boat a little bit, because the rules are so strict at the moment and don't allow it to happen. And ultimately, as I say, all we're doing is hampering our own young players' careers and making it a little bit more difficult. It's a difficult industry anyway, so I think if we can make it as easy as we can and give everyone the opportunity as best as we can, then I think that would be a great way for Scottish football to go.
No, I mean, I definitely agree with that, because I do think when you look at the kind of loan signings, and there not being a lot of kind of affiliations between, as you say, the kind of bigger clubs and the smaller clubs, I always find that a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
And yeah, eventually, you did, after your loan spells and after your conversation, you broke into the first team in Kilmarnock. You played well over 100 games for Kilmarnock, but what was that like when you got your opportunity?
Yeah, listen, it was amazing. I remember, I think I played my debut against Motherwell. It was Jim Jeffries that gave me. It was an end of the season. There wasn't a lot in it for the clubs, but for me it was massive just to get out there and experience that Premier League first team experience. I'd had Championship, but the next level for me was Premier League, to go and play. And yeah, it was great. And then eventually getting a run under Jimmy Calderwood as manager when he came in, really trusted me. Had a good spell. Started again, you've got to start well, and I started well within the games that he gave me the opportunity, and it just continued from there. And you really grow in confidence as a youngster when you've got games under your belt and you're playing well, and again you've got a manager that trusts you. I think that's really, really important and speaks to you consistently. So Jimmy was great for me. Jimmy Calderwood, Jimmy Nicholl, Sandy Clark, they were a really good team together. And we were grateful we had them at Kilmarnock at the time. Really experienced manager and coaches. They got us through a difficult period, and then Jimmy obviously then moved on, and Mixu came in. So and then it was a different chapter for me. Mixu wanted to play a lot of different football, and great. I had a really good relationship with Mixu, and again was a completely different style of football. Wanted to play from the back, wanted to pass out. I wasn't allowed to kick it long, so it was different for me as a goalkeeper. But again, we worked on it in training. It wasn't just that you said it on a Saturday and you were expected to do it. Worked on it all week. And then it eventually really, really paid off for us because we had a good season, we had some good players, and it was exciting times at Kilmarnock at that point.
And I just want to kind of push on when you're talking about the playing from the back. And the reason I ask is because as a fan sometimes, and maybe you'll get it now when you're watching, and you see teams playing from the back, and there's sometimes you think, look at the bother you're getting into, kick that ball up. But as a goalkeeper and where that starts at you, is it very much when that's the mentality, that's how you're expected to do it? Long kicking is just not an option?
Yeah, and we kind of broke the trend, to be perfectly honest, in Scottish football at that point. There was nobody else. Celtic and Rangers both weren't playing football. That style of football wasn't really... Again, it wasn't really thought about at that time period when I was playing it. Mixu came out and says, "Look, no, we're passing from the back." I wasn't allowed to kick the ball over the halfway line from a goal kick. That was just the rules. That he wanted me to play it from the back. And yes, it hurt us at the start. We made loads of mistakes, lost a lot of goals from it. But eventually, when we became confident within ourselves and we understood the system, the way he wanted us to play, listen, it absolutely worked. It did. We played some great football. We eventually got it. We had some talented players. One for me was Alexei Eremenko. If you have him in your team, he was probably the best footballing player I've ever played with. He was incredible on the ball. I used to be able to give it to him with somebody marking him on the 18-yard line facing me. And normally what happens in that situation is a player just bounces it back to you and wants you to then deal with it. Yeah. Alexei would never ever give it back. Never give it back. He could be marked by two players and he would always take the ball, get a turn in and play that forward pass. He was, honestly, I can't describe how good a footballer he was. He was honestly incredible. So he massively helped us the way that we wanted to play because we had a player of his talent in our team. But yeah, it takes time and it did take time for us to get it right, but we eventually got it right. And nowadays, obviously, see majority of teams wanting to play from the back and start the way they play. But back then, as I say, I think it was probably about 2010. Not a lot of teams done it back then.
Yeah, and it's interesting now you're talking about Mixu, who recently was on the show, and I always had the impression he's a scary guy. And he came on and he was so soft-spoken, so lovely. I mean, very passionate, but so soft-spoken, so lovely. And I genuinely sat at one point and said to him, "You're not as scary as you appear." Was that very much the way he managed?
Yeah, again, I think, listen, I always remember he was a really good coach, really enjoyed being on the training ground, he was a good manager, but really, as I say, to play that style of football, you have to work really hard on it. You have to get everyone to believe it, that you can do it, and they've got the ability to do it. So first and foremost, he was very, very good in the training pitch. But yeah, listen, he's got that sort of scary exterior, but I think he also has that sort of knowledge that he knows he needs to work with players in different ways. Some people, yes, they need a little kick up the bum, and other players need an arm around them. And he had that in him. That definitely had that in him. But I always remember him saying, I think it was before the game actually, that he didn't want the beast to come out, and he had this big exterior that he was going to get angry and stuff. So he had that in him as well. Absolutely, you could imagine, because he's a big guy. Yeah. But he was a very good coach as well. As I say, phenomenal on the training ground. Really worked hard at what he wanted to do, and was successful, Kilmarnock, because he eventually got the Finland job off the back of it.
Yeah, because I actually remember him saying, because it was only recently he was on, that it was always, when Finland came in, obviously being his nation, he couldn't say no, but he always thought, I would have loved to have stayed at Kilmarnock for at least another year,
Yeah.
just to see what we could do.
Yeah.
From Kilmarnock, you then moved over to Rangers. And I know at the time it was, without getting into the depths, it was kind of difficult period that Rangers had went through, but still massive club, still one of the top two clubs, irrelevant to whatever league they were in. They were still deemed as one of the top two clubs in Scotland. But what was that like going to Rangers at that time?
Yeah, listen, it was for me. It wasn't a difficult decision. I was signing a long-term contract with them, so looking towards the future. But also, listen, you were going to a club that was still getting 40,000 fans at the stadium at home games. So, yes, the club were in a mess. There's no getting away from that. Even when I joined, in the background, there was a lot of stuff still going on, and continued to do that probably for a couple of seasons when I was there. It was difficult times, but listen, the fans were incredible. I was a Rangers fan as a kid and still am. So to join a club that you supported and the opportunity of doing that was incredible for me, and it was one that I really couldn't turn down. Again, you've got to be honest. Financially, absolutely was miles ahead of what Kilmarnock could offer, and that's just being perfectly honest. You need to be honest about that.
Yeah.
They made a great offer about and for your family and your future, you've got to consider these things. But as I say, there was definitely the thought in my head was that it was a club that I'd supported for so long, played against them many a times with Killy, and yeah, you knew what the club was all about, or certainly you thought you knew what the club was all about until you went in the door. And as I say, I've said it before, you think you know how big Rangers is until you join, and then you realise it's so much bigger, and it's an incredible experience, whether it's good or bad, and it had some great moments and some not so great moments. But listen, you learn from it all, and I think you look back, and I look back fondly on every single moment, whether it was good or bad, that you got to play for such an iconic football club.
And I suppose one of the questions I've got on it, and it's, Kilmarnock, huge club. Obviously, and I'm sure we can all agree, with no disrespect, Rangers are far bigger than Kilmarnock would
Yep.
be. So when you joined Rangers, did things like being recognised a lot more start to happen a lot more to you?
Yeah, definitely. I think your profile as a person definitely goes through the roof. Listen, I'd played loads of games in the Premier League, been on TV, loads TV games, and had quite a decent profile at Kilmarnock. Had Scotland recognition at that point. But then when you go to Rangers, it's a completely different level. I mean, there's fans absolutely everywhere, up and down the UK, all abroad. Anywhere you go, you'll get noticed as a Rangers goalkeeper, and yeah, so it totally changes your life, the way that you needed to kind of go about your life as well. Listen, I could have done loads of stuff when I was with Kilmarnock and go under the radar. But when you're with Rangers, it's a completely different kettle of fish. So you need to absolutely watch what you're doing, and make sure you understand how big the football club is, and there's eyes and ears on you at all points. So it was a total change for me, but it was one that I was kind of relishing as well.
And was there ever any weird places that you were, or that you get recognised and you thought, how?
It was always the ones where when you're travelling and you jump out of a petrol station and somebody's like, "Oh, can I get a picture?" And it's great. Listen, it's absolutely brilliant. I do miss them days nowadays, but no, you everywhere you go, supermarkets, petrol stations, whether you're on holiday as well, you've got people who are, you can hear them whispering, "Oh, I think that's the guy that plays with Rangers," and yeah, just they eventually pluck up the courage and come and speak to you, and they realise you're just a normal person. So. No, listen, it's great as well. It's great to have these moments and enjoy them when people are wanting to speak to you, and be again very humble as well. So yeah, you do miss them when you stop playing.
From Rangers, and I mean, you've done a lot at Rangers. You won championships. You won kind of personal recognition and things as well. What was that feeling like, being the team that, as you said, you supported, you were a fan, and then to be able to lift the trophies and get kind of personal recognition there as well?
Yeah, it was incredible. I always remember League One was when I joined, and we won League One. I think we were unbeaten that season, and it was a hard season. Listen, as I say, turmoil that was going on behind the scenes, the pressure you're under because you're in League One, and listen, they've signed a influx of Premiership players, and they should win this at a canter, and it doesn't happen like that. I can simply tell you, it absolutely doesn't. They're difficult places to go. Stranraer on a Wednesday night when it's been raining all day and the pitch is boggy. It's a hard place to go. Listen, I've seen Rangers in recent times when they're a completely established Premier League team again, and I've got top quality international players. I went to East Fife and I've struggled away from home. They're different. They're hard ties, these, and to have to play them week in, week out is even more difficult. Listen, there are some games at home that you score early and it becomes a fairly easy game, but there's other games you don't score and the fans are on top of you. The pitch isn't great. The wind's up. There's no big stadiums to protect you. It's these small stadiums. So there's a lot of things against you and make it really, really difficult for you. So I remember at the end of that League One season, as I say, I think we went unbeaten and we won it. And we had a dinner after the last game. And like generally, I was mentally exhausted. Just the amount of toll it had taken on, the pressure you'd been under for a full season. And it was my first full season of taking that much sort of pressure. As I say, no disrespect to Kilmarnock, but you could lose 3 games and then win one and you were okay. Whereas Rangers, it's just unacceptable not to win any game. You need to win every single game that you play. And that's still the case. And the players will feel that at this moment in time. But that's the way you learn to get your mentality towards that, and you need to have that mentality. So it was a tough season, but listen, lifting them trophies is incredible. The days that I had at Rangers at Ibrox when we got to lift the trophy in front of the fans, and you get your family on the pitch, and they're days you'll never forget. And you've got to treasure them, and I certainly do, because it's an amazing experience.
Yeah, just when you're talking there about kind of pressure and the kind of mentally drained in that, with you being a goalkeeper, so when you look at, strikers will miss chances, but if a striker gets 4 chances in a game and they score 1 or 2 and you win, it's great. Midfielders, if they lose the ball or defenders lose the ball, you're the last line of defence. So does that come with a bit of extra pressure, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think you need to be have a certain mentality, certainly, to be a goalkeeper, because ultimately, if you make a mistake, 99 times out of 100, the ball's in the back of net. And again, also what comes with it as well is people. I've certainly learned this over my career. Forget how many saves you make in a game. If you make one mistake, that's the only thing to speak about. And unfortunately, that's just the beauty of being a goalkeeper. You see it recently that Jack Butland had a great game, and that's what you can also have the flip side of it. He had a great game in European football there, and probably was a big part in why Rangers have progressed into the next stage. And again, he's getting all the plaudits for it. So you can get all the plaudits and you can be a hero, but listen, you can soon be a villain and be the guy that everyone's sort of crucifying and putting the blame on. So it certainly does take a certain mentality to be a goalkeeper and get up and go again when it does go wrong, because that's the hardest thing, is when it does go wrong, you've got to get up and you've got to go again. And that's what you see the best goalkeepers. They make few mistakes, but when they make a mistake, they don't let it affect them at all, because every goalkeeper in this world is going to make mistakes, whether you're the best goalkeeper or you're a goalkeeper down in the Lowland League. You're all going to make mistakes, but it's just about how you react to it.
And one of the other kind of points that I was looking at was obviously being a goalkeeper and playing with Rangers, the club you supported. What was it that made you want to be a goalkeeper?
I think it was, again, when you're younger, you get I loved playing outfield, to be perfectly honest, but then you go on goals and you find that you've got something that you're a little bit better than everyone else at. And then you find yourself going back there. And then again, for me, it was when I knew I was okay at goalkeeping and I had something about me that I could react to things pretty quickly, and make these sort of general saves when you're a young kid. I then got a coach, an athletic actually, when they were in the east of Scotland. A guy called Robert McComb kind of took me under his wing. He was the first team goalie at that point, and he'd actually been at Kilmarnock as a youth, and got released. And then he was just, as I say, they were east of Scotland down in at that point, and he just took me under his wings and showed me techniques and just basic training and basic techniques. And honestly, it took me so far, by having a basic technique at a young age and a good technique. And you see it nowadays. Listen, there's loads of academies out there. There's loads of guys doing goalkeeping coaching and kids at a really young age, a lot younger than certainly I was, that are getting the right advice and training at a young age. But I still think you need to have some sort of natural talent. I think my natural talent was reactions, and throughout my career, probably one of my big strengths was my reaction saves. I could make them goal line saves. Somebody having a header from 4 yards and being able to somehow manage to save it. Listen, I wasn't big on crosses. I wasn't a huge commanding figure, but I had that sort of, as I say, definitely reaction goal line saves, and I could make big saves that people would be like, how did he manage to make them sort of saves? So every goalkeeper has their strengths and their weaknesses, but yeah, we definitely say I probably had that as a youngster. But then working on your technique and listen, hard work's very underrated in life. I think if you work hard, then you'll always get your rewards eventually. Whether it comes within 6 months, 5 years, 10 years, you'll always will good. Good will come out of a lot of hard work.
And the reason I asked that question just now in regards to that is because then when you stepped out to play for Rangers, you know, that the guys that were before you, you know, names such as Kloss, Gorham, amongst many others, that must have also, I would have thought, came with a sense of pressure, knowing that Rangers have always been renowned having, you know, big goalkeepers. What was that feeling like?
Yeah, listen, it was for me, it was a feeling of pride that you've got the opportunity to play for, as I said, such an iconic club with a rich history of incredible goalkeepers, and you can be a small snippet of part of that club's journey, and that's what I was, and always knew that. Listen, yes, I would have loved to still be playing with Rangers, of course you would, but you also know you're part of the journey. And I thankfully got the opportunity to play against, for me, one of the best goalkeepers in Rangers' history, Alan McGregor. I played against him a number of times with Kilmarnock when he was at Rangers before they went into administration and stuff. And he's just a brilliant example of a true legend in Rangers' eyes. He's played so many games for the club, but had a huge part to play in their history, where they've went. European football recently as well. Just an incredible figure in between the sticks, and a great guy as well. So again, knowing that he's been at the club recently, and obviously Neil Alexander was there before I kind of went in, was the season before, and Neil had a fantastic career as well. So listen, as you say, you named Stefan Kloss, Andy Gorham. For me, when I was a kid, I went and watched them, and just in awe of these people. And Andy was one of the guys that when I first signed with the club, one of the newspapers actually got me and Andy together and just done an interview together. And that was like, listen, that was a pinch me moment, because I knew Andy was an absolute legend in my eyes and one of my heroes. And to actually just sit down and have lunch with him, and somebody interviewing you as a Rangers goalkeeper and him as an ex-Rangers goalkeeper was an incredible moment.
Yeah. And do you know, I'll say this on it. I actually remember my grandpa was a Rangers fan, and I remember being young, and a present he got me, because when I was younger, I played in goals, now school age and stuff, and what he got me was an Andy Gorham picture, like framed and stuff, and that remained up on my wall throughout childhood. Yeah.
And I think people forget how much of a hero and icon Andy was, and it's so sad, his story recently of what happened to him. And listen, Andy had a tough life. had a great life as well, but also had tough moments. And he was just a really, really nice guy. When I met him, it was, as I say, I was asking the photographer that was there just to take some pictures of me and him, just purely for my own portfolio, really, and just like so I could get some at home and have them printed out and stuff. Because, as I say, it was a moment that when you're a kid, you never ever think you're getting there. I always remember go to Scotland games, waiting outside for all the players, and now again, I do a lot of media stuff with a lot of these guys that I was waiting on just to get their autograph and stuff. And it's just an amazing experience to go through the whole journey where you've been a kid waiting for somebody's autograph. Ali McCoy's, for example, then he signs you as a manager. It's a story. It's a really incredible story that you go throughout your life. And I think it's just a great experience.
What was it like playing under Ali? What was he like as a manager?
Brilliant. Listen, everyone knows how infectious he is as a character, as a person. Was like that as a manager. Was really, really close to the players. Wanted the best for the club. Absolutely, that was his first thing in his mind, was wanting Rangers to be successful. He knew what Rangers was all about. He loved the club. He works really hard. Listen, I've always said, I think if Ali McCoist had another opportunity to manage in Rangers at a different era, I think he would have been much more successful. I think any manager would have struggled during the time that he was there. It was honestly, it was real turmoil at the back in the hierarchy, the boardroom stuff. It was, Ali was having a really hard time of it. I'm sure there's a lot of stories that he could tell that where he had to deal with so much stuff, as well as getting a football team ready to win games week in, week out, manage 40 odd players, and he had all this stuff above him going on. So it was so difficult for him. And eventually he left in a way that he probably wouldn't wanted to have left the club, but again, that wasn't down to his decision. It was the people that were in charge of the club at that moment in time. So yeah, brilliant guy, great manager, and it is a shame that he's never went back into it. But listen, I think he's absolutely found his niche. He's a brilliant pundit, a great commentator. Him in the media is just he's something that certainly I look at and I think, wow, I wish I could be in his sort of status of where he's at just now. But he's brilliant to listen to and speaks a lot of sense as well. So yeah, I think he's found his happy place in life.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, his commentary and everything, I really do enjoy, but he seems to have a story for everything. He's had that big a career that there seems to be a story there in it for every situation.
Yeah, listen, he's had some life experiences, and again, he's worked with so many different characters as well throughout his playing career, to his managerial career, to even the guys, as I say, the guys that were at the boardroom level. I'm pretty sure he's got a few stories about these guys as well. So, but yeah, he's so infectious. He's brilliant at what he's doing just now, and I'm glad he's enjoying what he's doing in his life just now as well, because you could see the difference from Ali when he first took over to when he left. He was a different person. He was very stressed and it was taking a lot on his shoulders. So, and again, you need that support from above you, absolutely, no matter what industry you're in. And if you don't get that, then it ultimately doesn't work.
Yeah, and then now yourself leaving Rangers and you went to Dundee United. Was that just a case of the kind of time was up at Rangers for yourself, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so Mark Warburton obviously came in, and unfortunately, I had a serious knee injury when he first came in. So it took me, before he even seen me sort of train or play, I was like 5.5 months in. I went for surgery on my knee, and it was like a 5-6 month layoff. So Wes came in, and Wes done fantastic. Was a really good goalkeeper, and we worked really well with each other. But I think it became the point. It wasn't absolutely didn't want to leave Rangers, but it became the point that my knee injury was really serious. That was my 4th surgery on that knee throughout my career, so it got to a stage where it was really serious, and I almost wanted to prove to myself that I could continuously play week in, week out. I wasn't going to get that opportunity at Rangers, and it was a really hard decision, but one that I kind of had to make that and just say, look, I want to make sure that I can continuously play, and I didn't know how long I would have left to play as well, so I wanted to play football and put myself out there. So I spoke to Mark and we came to the agreement that I was going to leave the club, and Dundee United had just been relegated. And Ray McKinnon had phoned me and I just explained the journey he wanted to go on with the club and how important a part I would be in that journey. So that was a really important conversation, that he seen me as a big part of the journey of Dundee United getting back to where they should be.
Yeah.
Listen, I love my time at Dundee United. It was an incredible club. It's a really, really good club. Again, another club that's been through a little bit of up and down turmoil within where they should be and where they've ended up. But yeah, listen, it was a brilliant season. It was a hard season because we had Hibs in the league as well. Neil Lennon had Hibs going well. They had John McGinn. They had loads of other people involved in that. So so it was a really good. It was a really good season for me because I managed to get 50 odd games in that season. It proved that I could continuously still do it.
And kind of after that, you had spent a bit of time kind of moving about. You went from there back to Kilmarnock.
Yep.
Was that the kind of journey, or was that a bit of nostalgia involved in that as well?
No, it was, again, the circumstances I left Dundee United was purely on the basis that I was still living in Annan. I was travelling to Dundee. I had a young family. It was a family decision that made me leave Dundee United. I loved the club. Ray McKinnon made me captain. Absolutely loved that responsibility as well. And it was at the end of that season, we got beat in the playoff final by Hamilton 1-0 over the two legs. And I think if we had went up, then things might have been a little bit different. But just at that stage, I'd already had the conversation with Ray, and it says, look, potentially I could be looking to try and move on and somewhere closer to home. And he totally understood that. And it was just Kilmarnock came calling. Lee McCulloch was manager, and obviously I'd played with Lee at Rangers, had a relationship with him, and he says, look, we want to bring you back. And again, unfortunately, that one just didn't work out. Lee only lasted sort of 6 weeks since I arrived, because I arrived kind of towards the end of the window. And then things didn't go well. I didn't really get an opportunity to get in the team at that point. And then, as I say, Lee got moved on, and Steve Clark came in. And listen, it was a great experience being involved with Steve. I love him as a guy. I think he's brilliant. Every time I see him, still speak to him. But again, we had the conversation in sort of January. I wasn't playing, and it just hadn't worked out. And when things haven't worked out, you've got to be quite honest. Look, everything doesn't work out in football. You've got to be honest. So me and Steve had a clear, easy conversation, and I just said, look, I want to try something else. It's just not worked the way that I wanted it to do. And he was fair to me, and he just says, look, we can try and bring somebody else in. If we get somebody else in, because he's, listen, I want 2 good goalkeepers here, but if we can find somebody else, I'll let you go. And they eventually did on the last day of the window. But then I made the decision, look, it's just maybe time to move on, and something that hasn't worked, don't try and force it out. Don't leave on a bad note as well, since it was a club that obviously I'd been very close to as well. But yeah, listen, great relationship with Stephen. Learnt a lot about how managers should conduct themselves, and again, he's proven that as a Scotland manager. But I just think some of his characteristics are excellent as a manager, whether you're a manager of a football club or you're a manager of a factory. I think just the way you manage people, and that was one of his biggest things for me. The way that he managed people was straight down the line. He let everybody know exactly what their role was and what was expected of them. And he didn't complicate things. That was the biggest thing for me. He did not complicate things at all. Every single person knew what they were expected to do when they went on the pitch. And to execute that, if you know what you're doing, is much easier than having 100 instructions and then becoming confused and becoming worried, becoming nervous. He didn't do that. And he just broke everything down to be simple. And that's why he's been successful as a Scotland Scotland manager and with such high-profile players, because he's straight down the line with every single person, whether you're a starting player or you're not a starting player. He's the exact same with every single person.
And the kind of last wee part here that I just kind of wanted to quickly cover was, throughout your career, and we've kind of discussed through a large part here, where you've played, throughout different leagues in Scotland. Now with the kind of way that the setup is in regards to, you've got your kind of Lowland and Highland League, and then you've got your League Two, and kind of go up from there. Do you like that structure, the way it works? Do you think it works well for Scotland?
I think we can absolutely allow more clubs to get involved with our leagues. I'm unsure of the best way of doing it, but I think there's a lot of ambitious clubs out with the leagues at the moment. You drop into the Highland League, the Lowland League, even below that, there's other clubs who are very ambitious, and I think us as Scottish football fans I think we need to embrace that. I think we need to, again, the clubs that are ambitious and want to develop their communities, where they are geographically, they want to get more kids playing football, but they want their team to be in the leagues. And why don't we encourage that? Why don't we make the pathway into the leagues easier, or extend our leagues as well? I don't see why. I think we've got big enough clubs now. We're established enough as a footballing country to extend our leagues and have an easier pathway for some of these ambitious teams that are below, and they're spending money on their infrastructure, they're spending money on their communities, they're spending money on their teams to be successful. Then why aren't we encouraging that to come up and get them into the leagues where they want to be and continuously grow? We've seen Cove over the last few years, how well they've done as a club and a community. They've grown so much. Edinburgh City's another example. They come up through this system, and when they get into the leagues, they're still wanting to go forward. They're not wanting to stand still. Whereas there's some clubs within Scottish football, and listen, it's maybe not down to their own faults. The finances do dictate, or they're struggling to find a strategy or a direction. Some of these clubs stand still, and I think that's why we've got the objection to sort of making it easier to these other clubs coming in. But I definitely think there's a load of clubs out with the current format and system in the leagues at the moment that we could be bringing into our leagues, and I think it would only make our leagues better as well.
And it's interesting because a lot of people that I have spoke with, when you look at Lee Bullen at Ayr, you look at Kevin Mackey, Breaton City director, and numerous others, all kind of want to see the leagues extended. They want to see kind of more in it. Because one of the interesting things that I'd found out recently, I didn't know, was when Kevin Mackey was on, he spoke about Brecon winning their league, but obviously not gaining promotion through the playoffs. So they stayed as is. They didn't receive any money for winning that league, which I thought was mad, because they're then having to stay as is and get back and fight again to then win a league that you're not guaranteed promotion from.
Yeah, and that's the issue. Listen, I know Kevin very well, really, really good guy, very passionate about his club, and has been done incredible things. If anyone follows anything to do with Brecon, the way that they are structured, set up as a football club is an example to anybody wanting to go forward, because the way they've got their community football together, they've got loads of new sponsorship, hospitality, everything about the club's very, very professional, but they've done it again with a guy who, listen, a very successful businessman, but again has got so much passion about his club. And I think you're right that these communities or clubs put so much into it, and there might not be a financial reward at the end of it. They've won their league and there's no financial reward at the end of it. Whereas you can see a club who can sit in League Two and finish 9th every year and will get a quite substantial payment from the leagues. And for me, it just doesn't sit right when you've got these guys who have been so ambitious. And again, not just about their football inside the clubs, about the whole community. And it's quite frustrating, actually, that we don't have an easier system that that rewards teams, certainly Highland Leagues, Lowland teams winning the league. For me, it should be an automatic promotion into the leagues. That's the way it should be. And unfortunately, I think in this country we are scared of change a little bit, and that's it's detriment to ourselves and our football that we've got in this country, because there could be some fantastic clubs. And again, what I'm talking about is not just the footballing teams, it's the communities, the fan basis. We need to grow in this country.
And funny you do say, because it was one thing that I did massively get from Kevin was how passionate he was. The second we started, and all of a sudden we were off camera and lovely chatting away, and then the second we went on, I started asking questions, just this whole burst of passion that was like, well, and it was brilliant to watch and listen to. And then he did just kind of put out, I think it was the kind of local paper there, and a few others picked it up. So when I spoke to him, what had just been released was him kind of talking about the setups of the leagues, and how it works in regards to payments and stuff. So I think he had just spoke to the kind of papers and things prior to that. But yeah, his passion massively came through.
Yeah, and listen. See if every football club had a leader at the top of their club with that much passion, I think we would be in a phenomenal place. Because, as I say, Kevin works tirelessly on Brecon City Football Club, and as I say, the difference that I've noticed over the past 2 years, since Kevin's been in charge, sort of, and working with other people within the club is incredible. And I know the support they took. I speak to Kevin now and again, again they're taking hundreds of people to Highland League games, away games, which is only benefiting communities and us as a country, that where you've got so many fans travelling, and it's just great. But it would just be great if there was an in for these clubs to certainly, when they win the league, that they go directly into League Two.
Yeah. And the final questions that I've got for you, Cammy, is what I kind of ask everyone now. So it's predictions. So if you were to look at we start with the Championship in Scotland. So if you were to predict who you think would win that league, who would you go for?
It's got to be Dundee United. With the strength and depth that they've got in their squad, I think they will strengthen again between now and the end of the window, and in January if they're in a good position. And also, I think they've got a really good manager in Jim Goodwin, who just needs a little bit of time, and hopefully the fans are patient with him. But I think they've got a good squad to go and win that championship.
And Dundee United was as well my pick. I'd be very surprised if Goodwin doesn't get them back up.
Yeah.
At kind of first time we're asking. If we look at League One, who would you pick? So I'll tell my pick for League One first was Hamilton.
Right, okay. League One, I was going to go. I'm going to go for Falkirk. I think it's going to be hard. It's going to be a really tough league. It just shows you how exciting Scottish football is at the moment, and where we've grown from. That we've got, I think, is it 4 or 5 full-time clubs in League One, and that's unheard of. So that just shows you where we're at, which is great, because it would be great to see a full League One league of full-time teams, because then that means we've progressed as a country, and we're getting more and more full-time clubs, which is going to better the quality that's on show. So, but for me, I think it's about time Falkirk done it. I spent a short period of time at Falkirk, loved it, but yeah, I'm hoping that they can possibly do it this year.
So that was the kind of 2 picks. It's ranged between Hamilton and Falkirk. One thing that I definitely think is it's 2 clubs that I think at this point, at the start of the season, will be expecting to be winning the league and promoted.
Yep.
But obviously, both of them aren't going to win the league, so I think it'll be kind of interesting to see where that goes. And don't get me wrong, there's other clubs in there that I definitely think could throw their hat into the ring. But that's been the two that's been picked on with the guests on. And then if we look at League Two.
Yep. League Two, I'm going to go with Dumbarton. I think Dumbarton have got a strong squad this year. They've signed quite a few experienced players. You look throughout their team, they've got Greg Weld in there, Mark Durnan, Gregor Buchanan. They've got some good players, guys that have played at a higher level, and I think that'll, over the period, I think they've got enough to go and win that league this season.
That was genuinely, and I'm not just saying this because you can check back, that was also my pick for this league. I was kind of lucky that Steve Farrow had come on the show, and has actually remained in touch a lot. Had invited us down there, so I went down a while back and watched the game and met up with him before it. But it was just the setup down there, and I thought last season they seemed to kind of kick off, and you thought they're going to sail with this, and then all of a sudden just hit this kind of brick wall where, and to look at, Albion Rovers took 5 off them, and I think, and Steve kind of openly said in this, it could have been 10 that day that they get beat by. Albion Rovers get relegated. They went down, and I think that just kind of shows as well the tightness of that, because Rovers also beat Stirling Albion at the kind of end of the season. Stirling Albion who won the league, but yet Rovers again relegated. So I think it's a tight league. But the folk in the show have been picking between Dumbarton and Forfar. I've been the 2 picks on it. Finally, Cammy, really appreciate you coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time to come on and kind of talk through the game and your career. Massively appreciate that. The final question's non-football related.
Right,
but if you could handpick anybody to play you in a film, so if there was a film to be made about your life and you can handpick any actor in the world to play you, who would your choice be?
If I could, Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper, that's a great choice.
Yes, I would pick Bradley Cooper just because he's so cool, and I think I'd love somebody to be as cool, just to play a role. Looking at if it was a film about myself, but nah. Listen, he's a brilliant actor, and he's one of the guys I would love to meet him. To be fair, he's a top actor, and very cool guy.
But look, Cammy, I really appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, get you back on at the other side of the season and see where the predictions in that landed. But look, thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it, mate.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.